And we're back.
We're back from the dead.
Well, kinda. I have a thing launching Monday, and so I've been like, I went on vacation last week. Well, I went on a trip last week, and then I got back, and I've just been work, trying to get this thing done. But
yeah, how's it going?
It's going really well. I've been working on it for 3 months, and the last month and a half ish, Andrew's been working with me, and then as of earlier this week, my other coworker Basil is working with me. And shout out Basil, who told me right before he listens, and big middle fingers to Andrew, our friend, who doesn't listen. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm on a podcast. I don't really listen to them too much anymore now that I don't have a commute. So kind of in Andrew's boat too.
His reason was he knows both of us. So
yeah, he hears the conversations before they hit the podcast.
But not like individually from each other. Like,
yeah,
I'll
right.
talk to him and then you talk to him.
Yeah. That's funny. So you have been working on this for 3 months. You feel confident that it's going to launch smoothly and everything? You said Monday?
We've been like slowly rolling it out to other employees and letting them mess with it. And we've also been doing a lot of like performance stuff. There's a lot of action cable. So we've like kind of been dripping out some action cable stuff and just letting it run. And
the action cable stuff was like, pretty much right away. Any cable came out as a replacement that was like, it's way more efficient. So I'll be curious to see. It sounds like you're using it pretty heavily. I'm curious to see if you have it.
We looked at any cable. It's not the easiest to stand up.
Yeah, well, it's 2 extra services you got to maintain, the gRPC thing and the Go or Elixir process too. So
yeah, you like fire up a separate instance of your app.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that it's like impossible by any means. It's just I don't know that we'll need it day one. We did bump up to like Performance L dynos.
Oh, okay. With like,
and we just have
how much RAM is on those?
Like 14 gigs. So we're just like swimming in free RAM right now.
For now.
Yeah. Jamie said today, this is our last free ticket. Like from here on out, you're all responsible for memory now.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. That'll be interesting. Like memory leaks and stuff will be something you'll probably have to kind of deal with or whatever. I don't know. Depends on how things go. I'm sure you'll see different trends in your memory usage. Are you tracking all that with Skylight or AppSignal or something?
We are tracking, what do we use? We use Scout for a lot of stuff.
Okay, yeah. I like Scout.
For performance. Yeah, Scout's pretty consistent. We also... Andrew made like a dashboard just for us to like monitor action cable connections and stuff. So that'll be nice. And then we have like meta-based dashboards for the actual project itself. So we hopefully should know what's going on. But
cool. That's exciting. Well, you have to give us an update on how well it holds up over the first week or whatever.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to launch it before a major U.S. holiday.
Yeah, there you go. That's like when I moved to New York City during the Super Bowl, so it was like nice and smooth traffic to get in. So I was driving the U-Haul, and it's the same thing. Deploy it on a holiday where very few people are, on the internet, like screwing around with stuff.
The other problem is I think we're off Friday and then it's Black Friday.
And yeah.
And so I don't know.
Yeah, that's the opposite of that. That's like the worst holiday you can, or whatever that you can do.
In like 2 days, it's like one day should be great, the next one I should probably just assume that I need to work. So
yeah, no kidding, man. Well, hopefully that goes well. It's interesting to have that feeling of like a 3 month project finally wrapping up and going live. Do you have some of the action cable testing stuff in there?
we're not on Rails 6.
Oh.
So we're on 5.2 something. So once we get to 6, we will. But what I've been doing is writing a lot. So a pattern we started using at work was the interactor pattern. And so I've just been writing a lot of interactors in lieu of the term service objects so that I can test those. And so like these action cable methods just call those interactors. And
So assuming that the action cable stuff is connected and working, then the rest of your code is tested. But
yeah, and we're trying to do some React testing. So like, who knows? We may even like integration test or system test, whatever the proper term is. So hopefully we've got all our bases covered.
Cool. Yeah. Well, sounds pretty good. So you'll know sooner or later whether or not you have it well tested or covered.
Yeah, I should know pretty quickly. So we started getting some like minor errors coming through Rollbar yesterday because we released it to, like I said, some of our coworkers, and they were action cable errors, but they were like the domains it said they were hitting were like live customer domains, and so like I went into panic mode, and then so like I made it like I forced it to break on my storefront, and then I saw that like the URL was some other random person's storefront. I was like, okay, it just has no idea who is who, like for action cable, I guess, and that's fine.
Wonder why that is. Or maybe there's a way to change the logging and the request or something to be more accurate.
Yeah, I was just glad because like I was like just going through people's accounts and like making sure that I didn't accidentally release it early.
Yeah, right. That's always a funny thing. I've done that before where you're like, uh-oh, I accidentally deployed whatever. Like you merge it to master and, push something else up and you're like, oh crap, I meant to like, be deliberate about that one thing that I pushed. And I just didn't think I was going to get distracted and fix something else in the meantime. And then there you go, half finished features in production.
But yeah, I'm pretty excited. So
cool, man. Well, I'm excited to hear what it is and everything when you guys launch it. So
yeah, we can talk more specifics hopefully next week.
Well, I've been using your app as a customer recently because speaking of 3-month-long projects, I finally finished all the Stripe changes for, well, I guess, majority of it's good, but I was making changes on it last night too. So, there'll probably be tweaks for a while, but I finally finished all the Stripe strong customer authentication stuff in Jumpstart, launched that, and re-recorded all the payments course stuff that I have also hosted on Podia. So that course is live now too, that walks through like the entire process of buying stuff for one-time payments and setup intents and all the subscription stuff and trials and whatever. It has been a long, long process to write all that and then like test it all. And that was one of the things that I like pretty quickly. I think you guys did the same thing. You mentioned in the past, like dropped the Stripe Ruby mock gem just because it was not, there's no way to like mock Stripe's actual API thoroughly without building Stripe. So like that ended up being a thing that it was like, well, we'll just throw it out. We'll use VCR instead. We'll supply some actual, API keys for the test environment and run our tests against the actual test environment. And, then we know with 100% confidence that our code works right now. If they make API changes, then we can, rerun them in the future and verify all that. But, it's a much more reliable way to know everything's working. And I'm glad to have all that done now and finally launched. So if anyone's interested, you can find the course on courses.gorails.com. It'll be $99 right now until the end of Cyber Monday, and I'll be raising the price on that. So that'll be my little discount to everybody. So if you're curious on accepting payments with Stripe and SCA and all that fun stuff, including some examples on testing, that's a course worth checking out. So I'm glad to have that done.
Yeah. Check out the course because it's a lot of work to figure out on your own.
I was like, when I finished it, I was like, man, I wish I could have paid $150 and saved 3 months of my life. It was like, yeah. So
you and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember what it was. I think maybe you asked me a question and we got done talking and I just was thinking about how much I never want to have to answer a question about that ever again.
Yeah, I know I bugged you quite a few times about random things here and there. And oh man, one of the most frustrating things was as I'm recording the course, I was explaining something and I paused recording and I was like, I need to just double check the docs real quick. The docs were different than what they were the day before. And I was like, oh no. And I start looking at stuff and the JavaScript API has changed. And it was like, you pass in different arguments into a couple of the methods, for one, that I was using were now marked as deprecated. And I was like, uh-oh. So I start looking into it and it's like, yeah, these are deprecated. The arguments for these other things have changed. You need to call these, these methods instead. Basically did the same thing. It was a kind of minor thing, but I was like, great, now I got to go change this, and this, and re-record this. I was just glad that happened before I finished recording the course, but it was also another one of those wrenches. So I'm really hoping that they don't do more of that stuff. But for the most part, it's really easy to keep up to date with it once you wrap your head around the concepts and how you need to approach stuff. So,
yeah. Anyway, let's
go on to more fun things.
Let's just bury that. We've talked a lot about that. Too much.
We're done here.
But congrats on the launch, and I sincerely mean for anyone who is interested in all of that to check out that course. So
yeah, I would happily buy it right now if that was available 3 months ago when I started, I would have bought it instantly. And that was from someone who knew Stripe in and out, like I had done it in the past so many times. But anyways, what's new in have you watched any of the RubyConf stuff that's been going on this week? I only caught 5 minutes of Matt's talk about Ruby 2.7 and 3.0. That was it.
No, excuse me, I haven't kept up with any of it. It's weird that it's so close to me. And I didn't go.
It's across the state.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I go national quite a bit, but no, I haven't really caught up with it. If any Confreaks videos come out that pique my interest, I'll probably just wait until then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know they were live streaming at least the main room or whatever, but I just didn't have the time to watch it. I caught a couple minutes of Matt's talking about, Ruby 2.7 and 3 coming out. 2.7 will come out in Christmas, which is awesome. And then it looks like 3 should come out next year, which is kind of crazy. So, Ruby 3.3 will be out sooner than later. And hopefully we'll see good enough performance improvements that it will actually, like the JIT and stuff, will actually improve Rails performance once those, optimizations and stuff have been added. I know that was kind of the disappointing thing for a lot of people that use Rails. Like 2.6 JIT didn't really improve any performance yet. Just to kind of the nature of like the problems that Rails has to deal with versus, other CPU intensive things or whatever. But it'll be great to have it. And then they've introduced like the fibers and things, which will be nice improvements as well. And it's always funny to watch Matt's give a talk and be like, he's like, I regret adding threads and whatever. He's a great speaker. I like him. Good.
Yeah, how was it? I assume you watched it.
I watched part of it, but not a whole lot. So that's about all I remember from this clip I watched. But yeah, I'm curious to see what else is new and going on in the Ruby community. I wish I would have been able to get out there too, but it is what it is. So
yeah, I think if I have to choose between the two, I think I like going to RailsConf more.
Yeah, I've never been to RubyConf.
I really like RubyConf.
I've never gone.
I like it. I don't know.
Yeah. So at some point I'll try and go. We'll be both there at RailsConf next year. I hope. I will certainly be there. Are you going for sure?
I should be there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't.
And we're both going to MicroConf, which is exciting.
Yeah, so last year we shared a room at that hotel for RailsConf. We're sharing a hotel room there again for MicroConf. And I was looking at another conference that's not tech related, and it's at that same hotel. And I was like,
wow. So you're just going to move to Minneapolis?
Yeah, I might as well just live there.
That's funny. Wow. And, were you disappointed they moved it from Vegas?
Always. Vegas is my life. Vegas is my happy place. So.
That's great.
But Vegas doesn't have the butcher and the boar.
Yeah, there we go. Man, some of the best food.
I think we talked about that before. That wonderful, glorious meat shop downtown.
Yeah, it was our final dinner from RailsConf this past year, and it was very expensive and very good. Very good.
What else is there? You came to Memphis. We haven't done a podcast since then.
We came down and just hung out for a weekend. We were going to record a podcast actually in person, and then we were like, nah, it's more fun hanging out. So, yeah, that was funny.
It would have been impossible to record with how excited my kids were that you were here.
Yeah, they were super cute. It's so funny. Aside from Stripe, I've been like, I've been fixing some things and improving stuff in Hatchbox and I don't know, just getting through some improvements there. But we also added like kind of a just very handy feature or set of features, I guess, to Jumpstart Pro, which is fun. So now if you add your credentials, like your API keys for Honey Badger or Sentry or AppSignal or Scout or whatever it is, you can go into the Jumpstart Pro admin, check a box, and we will go install the gem and configure it to load the credentials for you, and then you're good to go. So you can just deploy it after that, which is nice. You don't have to look up any of the instructions and like figure out what to do and what YAML file or config file you need to create and whatever. You just like drop in the stuff and you're done, which is really handy. So I've been happy with that. And we did the same thing for, I want to try and do this with a lot of integrations, but we have all of those. So your typical error and performance monitoring tools, we have, I think almost all of them that I could remember built in. And then we've also got ConvertKit, Drip, MailChimp, and Intercom integrations. And they won't sync anything right away because you need to choose, your mailing list ID or whatever it is that you want to add users to. But we give you a convenient interface for each one of those. So like we'll install the gem. It's, of course, you have to go look these up. It's like Gibbon for MailChimp. It's not gem install MailChimp as you would hope. Little things like that. So these also initialize differently. So you actually create clients for each one and assign it to a variable in the Jumpstart clients class so that you can have a consistent way of interacting with these third-party things rather than using the README of each gem and finding out oh, their setup's totally different. And this one has you create a client and then you do it inline. And this one's like global configuration that you create in a client and stuff. So it's just trying to make them a little bit more consistent so that you could just drop in that code and, subscribe your users to your email list or whatever after they purchase your product or sign up or whatever. So I thought that was kind of handy as an addition to add just to, I don't know, just get you up to speed with tracking things for production error and performance wise. And then, the other feature that you commonly add is syncing your customers to some sort of mailing list. So if you could do that in 5 minutes or less, that was kind of my goal. And I feel like it definitely works that way right now, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like it's fresh on my mind because I recently did that with MailChimp.
Oh, cool. Did you use the Gibbon gem too?
I always use the Gibbon gem. The MailChimp one is just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because as I was doing all these integrations and literally everything is different, every installation of these gems are slightly different. Some are add this config file and these credentials or run this bundle setup command or whatever. And it's God, I wish there was some consistent thing. So sometimes lately I've been man, maybe I should just go build my own wrappers for these APIs and just have some sort of thing that I can use to take all the, the URLs and their methods and just drop them into some gem and have it generate the API interface. And then I was well, the AWS gems sure turned out pretty crappy being auto-generated. So I don't know that I want to do that.
Yeah, I pretty much I think about stuff like that too. And then I think of even though it would be something open source, I think about the support burden. I'm
that support burden is pretty gnarly sometimes. That's the biggest problem I think with probably. I'm sure Heroku deals with this a lot of just helping people deploy their stuff is pretty tough. There's just so many little things. I noticed with Hatchbox recently, there's a ton of people who are getting an error that's I can't remember what it is, but it's related to the Rails credentials decryption. And so if you don't put in your Rails master key, it's this unpack one or whatever. And this might be actually if you use Adder encrypted with a Rails credential. So, it'll blow up with this error. And it's well, people aren't yet used to Rails using the credentials file and setting the Rails master key. And then, of course, Rails 5.2, for some unknown reason, they just have the single credentials and you scope your keys in there instead of multiple credentials files for each environment. And, those little nuances to how things get changed just really make for a lot of support emails back and forth. I feel like that's half my week at the very least, maybe 3/4 of it, just helping people get through that stuff. And it just feels like some of that stuff should have been ironed out a long time ago. I really do like that we have an encryption mechanism to actually store keys in the repo safely. Otherwise, people are doing some pretty crappy stuff. You're just dropping keys indirectly or whatever. So it does encourage people to do the right stuff. I just wish that we had that 5 years ago, you know?
Yeah, it's been really nice. I was working another language and framework the other day, and it was still like it did at least ship with like .env files, which is nice. But I was like, I don't really miss like having to keep these in sync and things like that because like you don't commit those. So credentials has been very nice.
Yeah, having a good standard way of doing that, I think, is just people want they don't want to worry about it, and they want the advice of like, here, just do this and you're fine. That's a great way of guiding people in the right direction. So I think that's good, but a little too late almost. But anyways, how is your side project Fieldhelp? Almost said field test, and then I realized that I have friends that do some. Well, this is fun. The other day, I was talking to one of my friends, and he works at Bayer, formerly Monsanto, and he has this genomic stuff that he does for them. And he told me that Google said they have one of the top 10 Kubernetes setups that they have on Google Cloud, period. And he was like, that was kind of crazy to hear. But he said he spun up like 120,000 CPUs to do some processing the other day, which was like, that was like the maximum their account allowed. And it's like a penny per CPU per hour or something. So it's very, quite expensive to run that kind of compute and stuff. But he's like playing with sort of the stuff at a scale that even Google's kind of like, well, normally we have people like Netflix or Twitter or whatever using this where it's just HTTP requests. But he's like doing genomics pipeline analysis and things, which are like kind of non-standard things that they've seen Kubernetes used for at that scale. So it's been falling down in different ways that they haven't, had to deal with yet. So I was like, man, that's pretty fun that he gets to play on a scale where Google comes to him and is like, hey, hold on a second. Like, we're not sure we can support this super well just yet because this isn't how we've used it yet. So it's sounds like some fun stuff to deal with, but also like frustrating too, I'm sure, when he's just wants to get things done. But yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I worked on it some on my trip. I just struggle so badly with like A, perfectionism, but B, like I just want my UIs to look as good as everyone else's, and I feel like they never do. And it's frustrating, and it was kind of a blocker for me to the point where I was like either going to A, just throw away all my Tailwind code and just use Bootstrap, or B, just stick it through. And so I just need,
what's it called? Their new thing they're working on, the
Tailwind components.
Or Tailwind UI. That's what it's going to be called.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I actually talked to our coworker and friend Andrew, and I was like, what should I do? Because it was already in Tailwind. He's like, just stick it through, and then when the UI comes out, just buy that. I was like, bingo.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. And then I read that there's like there's going to be like a hosting platform example, and I was like, yes. Like that has been it's actually surprisingly hard to figure out I am not a designer. I really I don't know. I'm not good at thinking about how to create a design that conveys what I need to. I can recognize a good design, but I really can't create it myself very well. And when I'm working on Hatchbox, like clusters and servers and apps all kind of look exactly the same. And so for me, I was like just building this out and like, oh, we'll put like breadcrumbs. You have your cluster, and then they have servers, and then they have apps and whatever. And it was like, that seems fine until you actually use it. And then you're like, I can click on any page and they all look exactly the same. And I can't notice from a glance which thing I'm looking at. And it started to, teach me some more about like what I need to actually consider with the design. Like I need to be able to convey the hierarchy of stuff at a much higher level, like kind of immediately. And they need to have a distinct enough, layout so that you don't confuse them. And I've got a long way to go before I can, really do that well myself. But boy, design really feels like it will, and it dictates so much of how you implement something too, that like it really does feel like a blocker if you don't have a great idea of how you want to lay things out and how you want to interact with it to go, it stops you from building things. You can kind of hack something together, but it's tough.
It's a total blocker for me. But I ended up pushing through it, and kind of actually related. So the reason I built, my dog is crying. The reason I built this is because I have like those other two projects, and like most of the time when I go to like write knowledge based stuff or like support forms, I'm just hand coding that in like a Jekyll site. And so I was like, I know this is mostly just a CRUD app, but it would be nice to like just push this off somewhere. So when I say somewhat related, I bought a theme for one of my other projects' landing pages. I like built it out by hand and tailwind, and I thought it looked pretty good. But then I found one that obviously looked better, and it was made by the same people who made the Bootstrap theme that I use in that app for this project. And so I was like, well, that'll at least be consistent. And so it was really nice because this morning, like I was working on it and I like got to like documentation and support and could just link those both to my Fieldhelp app. And that felt nice.
So, have you run into any like challenges building it so far that are like things where you have to make some, I don't know, kind of critical decision of what you focus on or how you architect like the back end or whatever that you've gone through yet?
So I started off building it with a knowledge base built in and like email conversation support. And that was just like you and I talked about that. It was slowing me down too much. And so I ended up just scaling back and doing the knowledge base stuff because that's really all I needed right now for my own stuff. And so, anyway, yeah, I've been doing that and it's been all right. I haven't really run into issues since I made it a CRUD app and not an Action Mailbox app. But I do want to go back and add in the email support stuff. But for right now, like it ships with like a contact page and it's got a form. And literally the form just emails to like the support address you give it.
Okay. Because I know we talked a little bit about the Action Mailbox like processing in the past. And sort of the like, you have this router that just uses regex to like choose which mailbox it goes to, but normally you're like trying to capture something out of that email through your regex, and it just seems like redundant the way that it's designed, that you don't define something where you can retrieve the capture groups out of the regex. And you had shown me that cool, basically like build a class that responds to the same things the regex class does. And you can drop that in and have the sort of the parser and the capture gathering stuff like built in the same place. I thought that was a nice way of approaching the Action Mailbox stuff, because it, like most of these new Rails features, feels like they're functional. They're just not very well polished yet, and they kind of feel very much like version ones. Like that feature there was like, how often are you going to want to route an email without actually grabbing like an ID out of it? It seemed like a common thing.
Yeah. The docs didn't talk about that. I actually had to go to the code base where they have like code comments that talk about how you can use a class that like responds to match. And I was like, it like clicked then, because then I was like, oh, so this class could also be like my source of truth for like generating the like reply to email. So it's responsible for generating it, parsing it, and like the regex for like directing it. And so yeah, it was nice. And then now I'm not doing any of that right now.
Well, yeah, for sure. Like that stuff is, if you're trying to build a new app and you set off trying to build every feature, it's just not going to be very easy to ever feel like you're done. And it's cutting down that scope to, we'll just do the knowledge base first. We'll make that work really well for my use case. And then, as you get that finished, then you're like, well, now we have some tickets that we actually need to deal with. So it'd be nice if we had this feature and we can add what we need there, and probably feels much, much better as you go through that approach instead of, trying to clone all of Zendesk or something from the very beginning.
Yeah. And like, I just ripped out all the pay stuff and the Stripe stuff. And it was like, I mean, I'm the only one using it right now. And like, I could throw up a landing page for it, and if other people like are interested, that eventually I could like revisit it. But like, I don't know. I got joy today out of being able just to link to it. And I was like, that's good enough. Like, if other people want to use it, that's cool. But I'm, for once in my life, like just satisfied that I built something
I wanted. Yeah, that is a great feeling. There was reminded me of a project I did a long time ago. And I really should revisit it. But basically, the app didn't really do anything but record webhooks. And so if you're building something where you are interacting with, say, the Stripe webhooks or any other webhooks, one of the problems is in development, if your server wasn't running or ngrok or a local tunnel wasn't set up, the webhook comes through at 404s or 500s, and then you're done. You can't replay it or anything. And it's just kind of, a real pain because you got to go set up whatever API call or whatever action generated the webhook. You got to do that over again. So I built this little site called webhookmonitor.com. And all it did was have an endpoint, and it would just accept a post request and just store whatever you sent it and then display it. And that was like extremely handy because I could go and point Stripe or whatever API or webhooks to, and they would just store there. And then if I wanted to retry something as many times as I wanted, I just like copy the JSON from there and, paste it into my code and run it again. Whether that was in like the Rails console or, a test or whatever it might be, I could just replay stuff, or even have like Postman send a post request to my local host, and it was like something I just built for myself, and that was it. And it was like so nice to have that, and it felt like I was done, and I finished it, and there it is, it exists, and that was it. And it was like really, really cool. And now I haven't touched it for like 3 years, and I don't even know if it runs anymore, but yeah, that's like really good feeling, like building stuff like that. I don't do that very often anymore, and I want to get back to that.
Yeah, it's been nice.
You have any other side projects that you've done like that in the past?
Nothing that's ever shipped.
Maybe it's like a habit to practice or whatever, like build little things and, deploy them and just, I don't know, have them live. And I did that with a handful of things. And every time I remember that feeling of like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I have this little tool I can use now. So, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully that will start compounding. Or if not, it's cool too. Like, I'm just kind of content for once.
Good, man.
It's nice. So.
Well, I think that should probably wrap it up for us this week. It's funny because we haven't recorded in a while, but since we came down to visit, like, I feel like we have chatted pretty recently, even though we haven't on the podcast. So, well,
yeah, it's been nice, and we've talked a little bit here and there. So maybe that's why we've been slow to podcast.
Probably has been. And you've been busy getting this feature shipped, so we'll have to hear how it goes and your action cable. Every time I'm beginning to like think about, is it action cable, active cable? Like, they both start with the same 3 letters or 4 letters, and they're awfully close. But
yeah. Well, man, good to chat, and we'll
cool. Sounds good. See ya.